Nahida is absolutely game-changing as a teammate, and in this video, I am going to show you some of the best team comps you can build with her right now. If there's one team that needed a serious facelift, then it would be the Burgeon team, and nobody's happier about this than Thoma. You could already build some decent Burgeon teams with him and Dendro Traveler or Kali, but the biggest problem was that there wasn't enough Dendro application to guarantee those beautiful Burgeon explosions. However, now, thanks to Nahida, this is no longer a problem since she applies so much Dendro, it's not even funny. So now that the Burgeon team works really well, how do you exactly build them? Well, for starters, Thoma is going to be the core of the team with a fully dedicated elemental mastery build using either Gilded Dreams 4 set or a split set of Wanderers and Gilded. The main problem we need to solve for him would be his energy recharge. Without his burst, he is almost useless. And while things like 4th Constellation help him reduce the burst down to 65 cost, your best free-to-play solution is going to be Kitane Crossbear, which at max refinement can help him regain up to 15 energy. Just make sure to use his burst first and then follow up with the skill, otherwise the weapon's passive will end up taking away 3 energy from him and he won't be able to use the burst for a few seconds. Alternatively, you could also give a couple of teammates the Favonius weapons and slap on him Dragon's Bane for raw EM substat, or use Moonpiercer, the new Sumeru craftable, although Kitane Crossbear remains his best well-rounded choice. Now, since Nahida is the one who makes it all work, Deepwood Memories is her best artifact set to shred enemies' Dendro resistance and force them to take more damage from Thoma's Burgeon reactions, as well as boost her own personal damage. Weapon-wise, there are many choices, but it's important to understand that Nahida will be the one who stays on the field so she can keep applying Dendro. So options like Mapamari or a Lost Prayer, who reward on-field attackers, have great synergy. Although, as I just mentioned, you could also give her a Favonius Codex if Thoma has issues with keeping his burst up. Now for the third member, you'll obviously need Hydro, so fast attacker like Xingqiu or Yelan are excellent, but Kokomi also works fine here, and keep in mind you can just use regular damage dealer or support artifact sets, since Hydro's job is to only generate Dendro cores. Finally, the 4th slot can be flexible, but Fistula is by far one of the best choices here. She doesn't actually trigger Hyperbloom that often, and she can also help achieve better synergy for Burgeon, since Electrocharge Aura on enemies can still help generate Dendro cores. And what's even better, Thoma's Pyro attacks will also create overloads, and they can hit for decent amounts since he's fully built with Elemental Mastery. Overall, this is probably my favorite team to play right now. It's got every element to enhance Nahida's skill. Her burst passive also gives her 250 EM easily while she's on field, since Thoma will usually end up with 1000 himself, and best of all, the rotation is super simple to follow as shown here. And even with free-to-play weapons, I can usually clear any Abyss room within 2 or 3 rotation cycles. But best of all, Thoma finally has a meta team, and that's not something a lot of us expected to happen. If there's one team that's absolutely busted right now with Nahida, then it would be Hyperbloom. Now, there are many variations you could go for, but as an example, this team right here absolutely demolishes the current Abyss, and it will continue to remain one of the top Nahida teams as time goes on. Yes, it might look weird on first sight that Raiden is only being used here for her elemental skill only, but the skill is so valuable, with the long duration, great electro application, and big area coverage. So it's enough to justify running full elemental mastery Raiden and achieve extreme consistency triggering Hyperblooms with her. Now, just like with the previous team, Nahida is equipped with Deepwood Memories, while the Shogun yet again can use either full Gilded Dreams or a split between Wanderers and Gilded. In my case, I have yet to find good Elemental Mastery Gilded Dream set, even after wasting thousands of resin. However, she is still able to reach over 1000 EM with 2 Wanderers and 2 Gilded pieces. Now, she does have a Dragon's Bane which gives a lot of EM from the substat. Otherwise, if you don't have it, just go with Moonpiercer, since other party members can pick up the buff and increase their raw damage. Speaking of which, the 2 best members to complete this team would be Yelan and Xingqiu. Both offer insane damage potential, especially in single target, although obviously not everyone has Yelan, so as an alternative, you could go for Zhongli for some shielding and resistance shred, or Albedo who gives EM boost from his burst, and his skill deals decent amount of AoE damage. Or my favorite alternative would be Beidou. Besides her burst initial hit, the lightning that jumps between enemies will not trigger Hyperblooms, so she's excellent for dealing with multiple enemies. And of course, all of these teammates are built with their usual artifacts and weapons. Finally, if you don't have Raiden, Kuki Shinobu is a really strong alternative. Not only will she provide healing, but it's very easy to trigger Hyperblooms thanks to her skill. Or you could also use Yae Miko, although sometimes her turrets have trouble targeting the Dendro cores, so she's a bit less reliable. Now, the team options I showcased so far assumed you are using Nahida on field. However, you can also build build off-field Nahida teams, for example, with Ayato or Child, who will spend the most time being the active character. But keep in mind, they will be the ones utilizing EM boost from Nahida's burst. So for example, on-field Nahida with 750 EM was the usual amount to aim for, because she would also gain up to 250 from Hyperbloom triggerer like Raiden or Cookie, assuming they have 1000 EM themselves, which shouldn't be hard to achieve. But in this case, if Nahida is off-field, that potential 250 bonus will be on Ayato or Child while Nahida's burst lasts. So Nahida herself will only have the EM you built on her, unless there are other party members that can boost it somehow. Basically what I'm trying to say is that off-field Nahida in Hyperbloom should be built with more EM in mind, and some weapons like Mappa Mare or a Lost Prayer won't trigger their passives, and it's better to go for something like Magic Guide, Wandering Evenstar, or even Sacrificial Fragments for that big EM substat boost. But honestly, it's hard not to make this team work. Optimizing it is very easy, and at the end of the day, when you use a meta team, especially as strong as this one, the gameplay is just brain dead easy. Like, use Raiden's skill, switch to Nahida, do her skill and burst, and then depending on whose duration is longer, just use skill and burst of both remaining characters. Like in here, Xingqiu then followed by Yelan, and everything simply gets destroyed, while Nahida dances around with her cute normal attacks. Now, this team surprisingly hasn't received a lot of attention, but it's actually pretty busted. So there's a lot of comps utilizing Nahida for aggravate damage, while she also deals good amount of spread reaction damage from her Trikarma. However, now is also the time to thrive for spread teams. Well, honestly, you can't really build that many teams since the only good Dendro damage dealer is Tighnari, and one challenge you have to work around with him is that his playstyle requires you to unleash charge attacks, which means utilizing units like Yelan, Xingqiu, or Beidou is just not that effective. And the thing is, even if Tighnari and Nahida can dish out good spread damage thanks to Deepwood Memory's resistance shred, it's still not as strong as something like Quickswap Quicken team. But by taking inspiration from the previous Hyperbloom team, using Elemental Mastery Electro units like Raiden, Cookie, or Yai Miko, as well as Kokomi, the combination of both spread reaction and Hyperbloom damage is quite amazing, to be honest. Now, I've been messing around a lot with Nahida, Tighnari, Raiden, and Kokomi. I know, this team couldn't get more premium with all these 5-star units, but I think it basically has everything except for maybe some shielding when trying to pull off those charge attacks with Tighnari. Otherwise, the outcome of this team is amazing, and the rotation that I found to work quite well starts with Raiden's skill, then Nahida's skill and burst, followed by Kokomi deploying her jellyfish, and then finally switching to Tighnari to deliver his skill, triple charge attack, and burst. Now, after doing this, I quickly swap back to Kokomi to use her burst if she has it, because her passive skill will then refresh the jellyfish duration on the field, and then I can just repeat the rotation again. It's also important to note that Nahida doesn't really spend that much time on field, so building her off field is kinda better. And it's also important to keep in mind Kokomi has Thrilling Tales on her, so that's why Tighnari has to be the next character you switch to, and allow his charge attacks to deal juicier damage. Oh, and let's not forget Tighnari can potentially gain up to 250 EM from Nahida's burst, so you can focus building on him more attack or crit stats, since his spread reaction damage is already covered, although gaining more of it from stats won't hurt it if he's using his signature weapon. But yeah, this team was a big surprise to me. I haven't really seen it covered by other content creators yet, so let me know in the comments if you tried it out yourself or saw somebody using it. Now, this team comp is still in its early stages, so calling it meta is a bit risky, but it's definitely something that cannot be ignored. So thanks to the way how Nahida's Trikarma works, causing any reaction to the enemies while they are marked by Nahida's skill will still apply Dendro and cause Trikarma damage. And because there is no ICD on it, you can achieve some really interesting results by using Ganyu's charge shots on a burning target. It will cause melt, but at the same time, Trikarma will reapply Dendro and the burning continues. Basically, Ganyu is able to score 3 charge shots that will always melt while the target is burning and Nahida has marked the enemy. Now, the core of this team has to be Nahida and Benny Boy. While the unofficial Pyro Archon can just use his regular artifacts and weapons, the Dendro Archon is actually going to be utilized as a support. Giving her Thrilling Tales and equipping either with Gilded Dreams or Instructor's artifact set seems like the most optimal choice right now. But you only want to give her Instructors if there's Kazuha in the team, because usually you can reach around 900 to 1000 EM with him, which means Nahida's burst EM bonus will be based on him. Otherwise, giving Nahida Gilded Dreams will allow her to achieve the highest EM in the team, and it will then be given to the active damage dealer. Now, besides Ganyu, the last spot could be Kazuha or Zhongli. I am leaning towards the Osmanthus Wine Guy, because it's not fun to use charge shots when enemies beat you around without that shield. Still, the best part about this team is that it has a simple rotation. You can see it for yourself in the corner here, but basically, as I said before, do the rotation, get those 3 charge shots from Ganyu, and switch back to Zhongli to start it all over again. And while I have been showcasing Ganyu so far, Rosaria is also actually a really good alternative, especially with the Maple Samurai boy. Just like with Ganyu, it's important Nahida is used right before her, so that Thrilling Tales buff is applied to Rosaria, and then you can actually just switch around with either Nahida or Benny to reapply Dendro or Pyro to enemies. Although, it is pretty easy to maintain burning on enemies, even without actively refreshing it. Like, truth be told, the several variations of this reverse melt team is really interesting to use because you can bring back some crowd units that were forgotten after 3.0, and the more strong team options there is, the better. Just a quick shout out before the last team, I would also like to give some attention to one Quicken Nahida team comp, and that is with Cyno. Honestly, playing Quicken teams before Nahida was absolutely fine. She didn't really bring that much to the table. However, for Cyno, she is a pretty important support because her mark remains on enemies for a very long time, enough for Cyno's whole burst duration. She also gives him the EM boost, and, well, she also provides good damage support. Probably the most comfortable team comp to aim for right now is with Nahida, Cyno, Fischl, and Zhongli. Although you could also replace Zhongli and go for Xingqiu or Yelan, or if healing is needed, then Dori or Kokumi can also work. Fischl could also be replaced with Beidou if you want more AoE damage, but regardless, Nahida as a support for Cyno is excellent, and yet again shows how insanely valuable she is for many team comps in the game. You could say that Nahida brought bountiful amount of changes to Nilou teams. Alright, aside from this horrible pun, when Nilou first got released, the usual team that found best success was Double Hydro, Double Dendro, and while it was pretty consistent, now with Dendro Archon, Nilou's Bountiful Core team is kinda crazy to be honest. And because Nahida applies so much Dendro when she's on field, it's actually possible now to run Triple Hydro. Basically like any other on-field build, Nahida uses Deepwood Memories, while Nilou is obviously built with health main stat artifacts, so that if somebody else from the Hydro triggers Bloom reactions, they can score much more powerful Bountiful Core explosions thanks to Nilou's second passive. Now, the second Hydro unit has to be either Barbara or Kokumi. The latter is of course a superior choice, but regardless, you need that healing in order to survive the self-damaging Bloom explosions. Finally, the third Hydro spot here can be used by either Yelan or Xingqiu. Just use their regular damage dealer build and enjoy awesome raw damage that they'll be able to dish out alongside Nahida's normal attacks. And of course, when it comes to the rotation, you can see it right here. Although keep in mind, because there is no crowd control in this team, some enemies may be coming in and out of the attack range. And more or less, the most important thing to do with this team is to make sure Nilou's passive gets triggered, so the team can cause Bountiful Core damage. And you also need to keep an eye on your active character's health, because sometimes you'll need to do some emergency healing. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd appreciate if you could press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more future videos. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.